Hey everybody, welcome to the DPOAA Podcast. I am really glad to bring this individual on because he has done things that pretty much are amazing that not a lot of people do. It takes a lot of dedication and hard work, but go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone.
So my name is David Wright, and I'm a personal trainer and a certified nutrition coach.
And
I'm also a competitor in bodybuilding for the NPC Federation, so competing in men's physique and classic physique.
And when people think of that, like people think sometimes not a lot of people may understand what it takes to even get to that point, right? It takes a lot of dedication and effort and hard work on your part to be able to get to that point, right? It's not your average person in the gym lifting weights and watching their nutrition. It's much more different, correct?
Absolutely, yes. It's a whole different animal.
So why don't you tell people about how you first even got into wanting to do something like that?
Yeah, so back in 2012, so it's been a while now, got into the gym really for the first time, was overweight for a really, really long time, about 260 pounds, got into the gym, kind of went through some different types of workouts. One of the people who was in that gym all the time was a trainer who also was a competitor herself, and just said, hey, you're dedicated, you're here all the time. Have you ever thought about doing a show? And I thought, no, I don't even know what you're talking about. I've never even watched one.
Yeah.
But then, she told me about it, and I kind of started looking into it, and I said, well, maybe this will be something that's interesting. Never saw myself ever before doing that, but started training really hard, got some different tips and advice from her in terms of dieting and things like that, because I had no idea where to go. Also found someone to help kind of with posing and stuff like that, because you have to do that on stage, and it's a whole nother animal in itself. And so I just that's where it all started, was just kind of a recommendation from somebody who's done it before.
Would you say that working out, did you have to work out harder? Was your intensity, did you have to raise your intensity? What was it, workout wise, that you had to change, or did you not really have to change much on that end?
So when I first got started, I didn't really change the intensity too much or anything like that. It was more the nutrition and understanding, at least at that time, as much as I could, how much to eat, what, macros to eat, all those different things, because it's, such a science behind it, really. And at that point, I didn't really know, what all of that was and how to do it all. So I got some guidance there on kind of what I should be doing, how much cardio I should add to my workouts, because cardio became a big thing for me. But yeah, that's kind of the route that it took. So the intensity of the workouts didn't really change, at least at that point.
Okay.
But, I kept pushing myself more frequently, rather than taking some days off and things like that. If I needed to, I did. But other than that, I made sure I was there and did that extra cardio so I could slim down and all of that fun stuff.
When would you say that you had to change the intensity of your workouts? At what point did you see it really change to, it could have been maybe a little bit or a big leap? When did you see that change?
I'd say, because my first show that I did was in 2015, the Tahoe show. And I'd say after that point, and I kind of saw the results of the show and where I finished, and kind of wanted to make sure I did better the next time around. Didn't really know how, didn't know who to get in contact with, anything like that. But I just happened to go to the gym with someone who had a trainer in the past who did shows. And so I contacted that trainer and said, hey, I'm brand new to all this. This is what I've done so far. Can you help me? What does that look like? What's the cost? All the different things that people would want to know. And 6 shows later, which is where I am now, we've worked together the whole time. So once we started working together for my second show, it was a whole different ball game at that point as far as intensity for exercise, because the whole point of, or the goal, I guess, was growth at that point. So from where I was at to start growing more.
And this trainer that you have now, he is actually a competitor himself, or was a competitor? Is he still competing? Or?
Yeah, current competitor, actually. He's in bodybuilding. He and I both competed last year at the NPC Mother Load. Same show. He's in bodybuilding, so he's in a different class than I am. But he won the overall last year. He's going to the nationals this year.
Wow.
I'm almost sure he's going to get his pro card this year because he's fantastic. He knows all the science behind it and everything. So he competes quite a bit. He also trains a bunch of athletes who compete.
Wow. That's pretty exciting to have a knowledgeable trainer like him is very essential, right? Would you say it's a huge percentage of where you've ended up in the competition? Would you say it's a small percentage? How much of an influence did this trainer have? Did he make that much of a difference?
I would say he made all the difference. Though, I'm the one putting in the work. I'm the one who has to have the discipline. I'm the one who has to do all of those things. The coach behind it, especially my coach, really knew, let's work on certain areas. Let's develop your upper body. Let's develop certain, muscle areas, so we can improve from time for each show to each show looking better. But the science behind the meals and when to kind of adjust those meal plans, and then depending on how far out we are, it gets down to really fine details of, as we get closer to the competition, we need to take photos every day. What's your weight every day? What are we eating? The whole meal plan's already done for me, which is a huge thing for me and for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So for him, all of the different things that he does on the back end, not just the training, but really the meals, and then writing the training plan for me to do on my own when I'm not with him, was a huge thing, because that's kind of where I was at the very first show, was come in and just kind of, I got workouts from magazines or online or whatever, and just would come in and do them, which was fine. But when you're going into show prep and competition, whole different thing needs, whole nother level.
Wow. That's so a trainer. Like, if you didn't have him as your trainer, the results would have been different?
I think so, because I wouldn't really have known how much more I needed to put in to get to where I needed to be, because it would kind of been a guess for me. Because really having that coach behind you and one that understands contest prep, because there's a very big difference in my mind between a personal trainer and a personal trainer who's also a contest prep coach, because the two are very different. One is, contest prep coach can personal train most of the time. Mine has, regular clients that he just personal trains as well, like I do. But then he also has all of that knowledge of contest prep. And that's a whole nother level of things beyond, kind of just regular personal training, because you have to know, kind of what's expected, what the look is that you're going for. And then you also have to know how you're going to get that client there. So for me, individually, he knows all about how certain foods affect me and what it makes me look like, and kind of where my weak spots are, so he knows where to work. And so it's a huge difference. I think it would have made a huge difference had I not had the coach that I had, for all those different shows.
Like night and day?
Absolutely, yeah.
So you can have a personal trainer and be getting ready for a contest, and you do all the right nutrition, but if you don't have the right coach behind it that actually has that knowledge of prepping for a show, getting ready for a show, your results are going to be different when you walk on stage.
I would say yes. And just because of the fact that a personal trainer can get you very, very far. So for instance, myself as a personal trainer, cool. I have a lot of knowledge behind me in terms of competing 7 times at this point, and understanding, the different things that people would have to go through in order to get there. Would I do contest prep coaching? Probably not at this point, because I don't have that kind of experience of coaching that.
So that's a whole nother world, basically.
Absolutely. I think that there's a lot of personal trainers. In fact, we used to have one here as well that was a fellow competitor with me, did the same show, who also trained people for competition. She has been in it, she's done it, and that's the kind of trainer where, you can train anybody from somebody who walks through the door at the gym just wanting to be healthy to people who want to compete on stage. But you really have to, for people to get clients to get that full value for that training, all the work that they're putting in, you really have to know kind of when they go out on stage, what are the judges going to be looking at with that client that you're training, and making sure that you understand how to get them there and kind of what that's going to take. And it's not that somebody who hasn't been on stage before can't do it, because as long as you learn kind of how all that works, you probably could train, but it helps a lot to have that experience and know what it's like to be out on stage and get scored by the judges and understand kind of what's going on there. Because it's really
what is
important
it
in my
like
mind.
to be on stage? If you can kind of like tell people like what, like, because it takes a lot. One, it takes courage, right?
Absolutely.
You're walking on the stage with like other people that have put in a lot of work into their body and a lot of work into their routine and a lot of work into their posing, and like what emotions, like what feelings is it like to just be like, I'm standing on stage and there's like all these people and judges, like what is that like?
So, from when I first went out on stage till the last time I went out on stage, it's very similar feelings. So you're very kind of nervous. The first time I was kind of a wreck because I had no idea what to expect. Because there are a lot of people out in the audience, especially at finals, generally the nighttime half where there's awards and all that. That's generally when it's very packed. Everybody comes for that.
Yeah.
So you go out on stage, and if it's your first time ever doing it, a lot of things are running through your mind. Am I going to remember my posing moves? How do I make sure that this muscle pops or that muscle pops? And what did my coach say to do again when I'm doing these poses? When I did it, I mean, I myself
Yeah.
only went to like 2 posing sessions with the coach. And that was a huge mistake on my part, because I thought, oh, that's enough, and I can just practice on my own and be fine. Never again did I make that mistake, and that's why I worked with the coach I have now. And
Wow.
and that's when I walk out on stage now, I'm more comfortable because I've done it over and over again. So I understand that there's going to be people in the audience. They're focused all on me when you go out on your own, because there are times that you're going to be in a lineup with the other people. But when you first go out onto the stage, you're by yourself. So that's your individual presentation. And that's the most nerve-wracking part. When other people are out on the stage, in my brain, they're looking at everybody else. They're not looking at me. But when I go out by myself, it's a whole nother thing. I mean, I don't have my glasses on, right? Because most people, they just don't wear them.
Yeah.
Because of the look is just better, when you don't have glasses.
Yeah.
But also, I can't see as well. So I also have to make it so that I'm not squinting or anything like that. And I also can do my, poses and things like that. So it is a little nerve-wracking.
So you are still nervous.
Oh, absolutely.
Those feelings of like, I'm like getting that feeling of like when I press the camera button on record, I still get that like feeling like deep in here, but once I turn on the camera, I'm golden. But do you still get that kind of feeling of like uneasiness? Like, do you ever question yourself? Do you ever think
So
about...
the feeling now is a little bit different. So it was overall just kind of a nervous feeling when I first did it. Now the feeling is a nervousness, but not because of the people in the audience or even because of the judges. It's now a different feeling because I'm looking at it from the perspective of, am I going to remember every of the little bit of the minute details that I need to do now? Because I now know I know how to do my posing. I've got that. This last time around, I did men's classic physique, which I'd never, ever done before.
Yeah.
And that one I did worry a lot about, the posing. Am I going to remember my steps? Am I going to remember every pose that I'm supposed to do? Is, my lats in the back, are they going to be in the right way that my coach told me to? And we practiced over and over, because those things are super important, especially in classic physique, because that's like the Arnold Schwarzenegger from 1970s.
Yeah, that
and
is
so
amazing.
So you go out
Pumping
there
iron.
and you go out there and you're in short trunks. So it's like you can see all of the muscles.
Yep.
And so you have to know when to flex certain ones in certain positions. And so all of that was racking through my brain as I went this last time.
Were you more confident this time in yourself and your abilities than the first time you went?
Oh yeah, by far. I was on stage 4 times this last time that I twice for men's physique and then twice in classic. I was very confident in men's physique because that's the thing I've done all the time. So much less posing is required there.
Okay.
It's just a front pose, a back pose, and then you're done pretty much.
Wow.
There is a transition phase in there where you were transitioning from the front to the back. You don't want it to look, you don't just want to look lazy about it. You kind of want it to look nice and flowing, but that's it. Whereas classic physique, I think there's either 5 or 7, I can't remember the exact number, of very specific poses that you have to do on stage. And then also at the end of the night for finals, you have to do a routine to music for a minimum of 30 seconds up to 60 seconds. You pick the time and the music. And so that part, I'm not very musically inclined. I'm not, I don't do routines. I'm going to look foolish when I go up there. So that's one of the things that kept me from doing that to begin with was I don't know how to do any of that. I've seen my coach do it 5 or 6 times probably in his because he's a bodybuilder. So he looks flawless and can just go with it. Right. And I'm going, I'll look like I'm falling apart out there. And it actually looked great. I was really surprised, but it took hours and hours of over and over practicing again, Practice.
That's the other thing. Practicing and putting in the effort and putting in the poses, like putting in the time of posing. Posing, you can get your nutrition down right? You can get your workouts down correctly, but if you don't pose correctly, you may have the best body out there. You're not going to score as well with the judges, correct?
That is absolutely right. I've heard that a lot. Just around the different shows is, gosh, this person had a great physique. They come in really nice and dry and you can see all the definition, all this fantastic conditioning, but they can't showcase it. Like you can look at somebody, because everybody's, of course, that dark tan that everybody has, right? So if you look at a lineup of people on the stage, you can clearly see who's got the best conditioning and everything like that. But when you start to actually do the posing, that's where it all comes together because you've been dieting, you've been doing all these things for however many weeks it took you. But if you're not including posing practice and trying to make sure that you're really good and dialed in there, it's going to be really, really difficult because you might have somebody who has less conditioning than you, maybe isn't quite where you are, but their posing is better. Likely they're going to win just because they're able to showcase what they do have better than what you can.
You could have the best conditioning and the best look and the best, you're super on stage, but if your posing isn't there, you won't likely, there is obviously, it depends on the judges, but the likelihood of you winning is just not going to be there.
Yeah, you'd probably, again, depending, judges and the situation, but you'd probably place somewhere if you were, your conditioning was really, really good.
Yeah.
You'd probably place in the top, 5 or 6 maybe, but you're most likely not going to win.
So posing allows the body to be shown in certain ways, right? Like certain lengthening poses show certain muscles, right? And
absolutely.
You're basically wanting to show the judges your muscles in different ways. Is that what the posing does? And if when you do it correctly, it actually shows different muscles on the body?
Yeah. So just as an example for classic physique, because classic physique and bodybuilding are very similar in what poses that they're doing. Bodybuilding has, I think, 2 more that are required mandatory poses, but classic physique, there are certain ones where you're doing a side chest, so you're turned a certain way with your chest. So you see the chest, you also see the arm, but then you also see the leg and the glutes. And so that particular one, you're showcasing this one side of you, but you're still showcasing, you have to remember, we have to flex our glutes, but also still flex our chest, but also still,
so you're really
and
the
stomach
control
and all of these things. And that's one of those things when you're on stage, you have to remember all of it. And then, okay, we're done with this. Maybe they're comparing you side by side, right?
Yeah.
And then they say, okay, front double biceps. So then you have to remember, okay, I'm coming from here, and now I have to still hold the stomach nice and firm, the abs nice and firm. I have to turn around. I have to do this. I have to get into your feet have to be in the right spot so you can show your quads, your quad sweep that you have on your leg. So like every pose has kind of different muscles where you have to remember, I have to stand a certain way or flex a certain way. Also, the judges can see it. Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot. Like I've seen bodybuilding shows and I've watched documentaries of these bodybuilders getting ready for a show, and I'm just like, what? Like their life is the gym.
Yeah, pretty much.
They live in the gym. Like they show this guy waking up early. He's at the gym for a couple hours. He goes to do some, like, he already has this pro card. So he's reaching out to these different companies that sponsor him.
Right.
And then he's going back to the gym, and then he's eating. Then he's like, I'm like, the time and effort that these pros put in. And you don't wake up looking like them. I'm sorry. You don't.
Absolutely not.
No matter how much you dream about it, you can't wake up the next day and look like them.
No, yeah, pros especially, and it doesn't even matter whether it's in the NPC or any other federation that does bodybuilding. Once you're at the pro level, it's like that's your job at that point. Most people, if you want to go like in the NPC is the Olympia, it's like the Olympics of bodybuilding.
Yep.
And if you want to get there, even if you're a pro, that doesn't mean you can just walk onto the Olympia stage. You have to go and compete at pro shows, and then you get, from my understanding, certain points when you go and you win certain shows as a pro.
Okay.
You get points towards qualifying for the Olympia. So even if you're a pro, you can't just go if you feel like it. It's one of those things like the
an
Olympics.
Invite kind of thing. Like
basically, you have to get a certain amount of points as a pro to qualify to go to the Olympia. You can't even
just go and show up and be like, I'm a pro.
Nope.
Here's my pro card. Here I want to get on stage.
Nope. Not to compete against, because they have like what they call, at the same time, they usually have the amateur Olympia. So it's when people that are like nationally qualified can go and they can compete for like a pro card type of thing. But if you're already a pro and you want to go and do the Olympia against the best in the world, you have to qualify to be there. You can't just come just because you're a pro. You have to be one of the best pros in the world to be there.
So there's like, how people are in the NBA. They have people in the NBA, but then you have some people like legend Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, Michael Jordan, LeBron James. That you have those star people that stand out.
Absolutely, you do.
Even the pros. So even at every level of sports, you have those people that clearly stand out, right? That really make them kind of put themselves out there. But for a lot of people, why do pros have to go and get sponsorships?
So to me, because number one, you don't have an 8 to 5 job that you're working. That is your 8 to 5 job, right? You're in the gym, like you're talking about. You're in the gym, you're eating. Yeah. You're back in the gym, you're eating again. You're probably also doing, training videos. Maybe you're an online coach. You're coaching other pros, whatever the case might be. So that's in general what a lot of the pros or even people who are really good, like my coach, same kind of deal. Now, he doesn't have sponsors. He does it all through his own coaching and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But when you go as a pro and you're getting sponsorships and those kind of things, it's because, that's an income stream for you. Because when you compete as a pro, it's very, very expensive. So me as a, regular person who's non-pro at this point, I can go and I can compete at, let's say, the Motherload show that's coming up. I could go and compete for whatever the entry fee is, $129 per class, I think. But if it were a pro show, and I don't know if this one has pros in it, but generally pro shows, for a pro to go and enter into a show, it's a lot more expensive to go and enter into a show. So, they have to not only pay for probably a coach themselves, they're doing the same thing I'm doing with the amount of food that you're eating, the amount of maybe even supplements that they're purchasing. So a lot of times it's a supplement company that's sponsoring them. And sometimes it's not even money. It's just your supplements, and that's a huge ton of money there just by itself that you're saving as a pro by getting these free supplements and then, discount code and all that. So you can try to help sell the supplements. But So that's generally why I think, pros would do that, because like that's the source of income stream for them, because they don't have a regular job.
I
other
don't
than
think it's
maybe,
possible.
yeah, I mean,
I really don't honestly think it's really like realistic.
it's very hard. I have a friend who actually is a pro and used to be a teacher, middle school teacher, and then worked out at all the things.
Wow.
I think it was in science. I'm not sure what subject.
Yeah.
She was a science teacher in a middle school, and she was a pro. She's gone to the Olympia, I think 3-4 times. I mean, so she's some of the best in the world. Even went over to, gosh, where was it? Romania or somewhere like that just this last year to compete, and did really well. I mean, she looks phenomenal. And so she left her full-time teaching job. She'd been there for a long time because she was also a coach and an online coach, has her own team of competitors that she was also coaching. So you really at one point have to think, where do I give something up here? Because I can't do all of these things. And so she took that leap to just jump 100% into, contest prep for her clients and personal training and all of those things, and it's done really well for herself. And so, other than that, I mean, you can do things like that, but especially when you're getting to be the best in the world,
I'm talking Olympia
you have to
level.
have even more income somewhere, because you have to travel, you have to do all these other things on top of your expenses to stay a pro, stay in that shape.
Well, I watch. Have you heard of this guy Brian Shaw? He's one of he's one of those like guys that can pull like a tractor, or like those strongman. He's a strong man. He's massive human, just massive. And I see how much food he eats, and I want to puke. Like, he sits down at a restaurant and looks like a giant. He's like, they're giant people. They're
right.
But he talks about how much effort it goes into it, like how much, like Eddie Hall, he's another like person that's in that realm. And I watch these guys lift, like a boat, just like lifting it like it's nothing, and throwing a 150-pound hammer like Thor, like hundreds and hundreds of yards. And I'm like, these are massive humans, right?
Absolutely.
And so everybody has different DNA, right? Everybody has different DNA. So I think for me, I look at them as inspiration. I look at them as potential. Because you have to look at your own self and realize that you can do things, and you have to reach the level that you can reach.
Mm-hmm.
And, obviously there's always room for growth, but you have to know your limit. You have to know, and don't feel pressured to lift past your limit, and because that's how injuries happen.
Absolutely.
And, a lot of things go into safety, and, it's really important to think about those things, right? It's the proper lift and the proper way you're doing it can really help build your muscle. I mean, if you're just swinging the weight around, that's not going to do much, right? You're just swinging weights around.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you see that a lot. Whether you're at this gym, other gyms around the country, or even around the world probably. But yeah, I mean, when we're using momentum rather than our actual strength, some people will disagree and say, oh, well, you should use momentum. Sometimes in my training, I'm not using momentum. If I can't lift it, then I'm not lifting it, because my arms or my back or whatever it is already getting a workout enough, and it's going to strain enough to where I'm not going to use momentum, because, I know that there's a bigger chance of injury. And also there's not really a benefit in my mind to using momentum at all. It's just more of a risk of injury to me or to my clients that I'm training. And so my big thing is, if we get to the point where we have to use momentum in order to lift that, then we're going to stop the set. We'll take a little bit of a rest break.
Yeah.
We'll do a new set. So then you've got that strength built back up again to do it the right way, instead of let's just finish off really strong and start swinging those weights, and people do that. And honestly, I just hope the best for them in terms of not getting injured.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's lifting the weight at a slower pace. And then like on the down, controlling it both ways, because that like I feel it more, rather than just going like this. I feel it more when I go like this.
Right. It should be very controlled all the time. I mean, and that's a great example in terms of like a dumbbell curl. You want to make sure that, clients understand, or when you're training yourself, that, you want to do it to where you can feel the bicep as the one pulling, because as we're doing momentum
Not
and
your
stuff
back,
like that,
not your back,
our
shoulder.
shoulders,
Yeah.
rotator cuffs coming out, we want to be able to feel and or see that bicep doing the work. And so when I train my clients, it's like, look at what's happening here to the bicep. That's what I want you to do. I want you to feel that here. Because if we don't tell the client like where they're supposed to feel and what they're supposed to feel, they don't know what is right or wrong. They're just trying to mimic what you're telling them to do. But if you tell them also the feeling that they're supposed to have, they're like, I'm not feeling that. Okay, well, let's change the grip. Let's change where this or that are. Because there's a lot of things where if you just change one thing on your grip, whole different feeling in your whatever body part you're working on.
And I think that's important. I mean, knowledge when working out is important. And I think some people want to use that momentum and they think that's building something, and they're like, oh, I'm lifting so much weight. And I'm like, yeah, you're doing it wrong. You're not being beneficial to yourself. You're not helping anything. This is not a good process for your body. You're just doing what? You're lift. Okay, cool. But that's not gaining any muscle. I mean, I lift lightweight and I have a lot more muscle on me because I'm controlling it the whole time. Like I'm lifting it slowly. I'm like controlling that movement. That to me is where I really feel it.
Yeah, and it's got to be controlled. And a lot of times I'll hand a client, a small weight, and they'll be like, gosh, I'm not weak. And I'm like, oh, just wait. You're going to see. And it's not that you're weak. It's that, generally for me, I'm working on isolation moves.
Yeah.
So if I'm working somebody's tricep and, they're, not a bodybuilder type of person who's used to doing, heavier weights.
Yeah.
If I hand you a 5-pound weight and you're going, man, this thing is tiny. Like, do I look like I can't lift more? And I'm going, well, that's not the point. And that's the generalization out there is got to lift more, got to lift heavy. And you know what? There are certain times and places for that and certain people who are in the condition to do that. And that's great. But most people, especially, when they come in for personal training, unless there's somebody who, has been lifting weights for a long time, that kind of thing. If you're just coming in here, you want to be healthy, you want to grow your muscles, it's like, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. And in order to do that, sometimes, we'll have this small muscle because depending on what muscle we're trying to work out, like the front delt muscle or the rear delt, they're not very big. And we don't ever usually use those just by themselves. But when I'm training to isolate that muscle. And you're only using that little itty bitty muscle that you have, not your whole shoulder, for instance. So normally when we're doing certain activities in our daily lives, we're not going, well, I'm gonna isolate the front delt to do this. No, we're using our arms, our back, our shoulders, whatever we need to complete the task. Well, when you're in here, and if I'm showing you, a front delt raise, maybe it starts off really small, but as we get through, 10, 12 reps, it's like, okay, now I feel that right here. And that's what you said was going to happen. And I think it's important for the client to have that information. So again, they don't only know what it looks like, they know what it's supposed to feel like.
And that's an important thing. Like also, I think people judge themselves on other people they see in the gym, and they'll be like, I want to be where they're at. And you got to realize, like, you're in here trying to make improvement on your life. And you can look towards other people as a sort of marker, right? But to put yourself in their shoes, you can't do that. I tell people, no matter how much I work out, no matter how hard I work out, I'm never going to end up looking like Arnold. I'm not. I don't have his DNA. I don't have his like super drive for working out that hard. My health is in a different place than him. So but do I see him as a marker of like something like I look at like as a motivation to, in a sense? Yeah. So do you think that people can look towards someone else as a marker instead of as that's where I want to be?
Oh, absolutely. I think so because, and it's really important. A lot of people, there's a couple of things, especially now with social media, right? Instagram, whatever, TikTok, Facebook, all the different things that we have. YouTube and everything.
Yeah.
So we'll see certain people, influencers, different people at different levels, and we'll say, I want to look like this person. That then becomes, I'm going to go to the gym, so I'm going to start working out so I can look like this person. Well, then after a while, I'm not looking like this person, regardless of how long you've been doing it, right? And then we get discouraged, and then we say, you know what, since I'm not looking like Instagram model person, I'm just going to quit going to the gym and, stop wasting my time. What people don't realize is, a lot of the time, and even if it's not necessarily an Instagram type influencer, even if it's somebody like, somebody who's a big influence on what I want to strive to be the closest I can be to that. My version would be Chris Bumstead, who's, classic physique, Olympian, 4-time champion, right? I'm never, ever going to get to look anything close to what he looks like, right? He absolutely is. But the difference I have is, that's an inspiration to, I know that that's possible to look in a certain way. So I want to try to get myself to keep going up and up to different levels. So am I ever going to look like him? Absolutely not. But I can still strive to make myself get closer and get more and do more with myself. So that's the thing is we shouldn't want to look, too much like somebody or in somebody's same kind of shape, because that, like you said, their DNA, their genes, their different things, we're not them. So we're never going to look exactly, but we can always push higher to go, you know what, I'm going to be the best version of me. I'm going to try to get as close to I can as what, like in Chris Bumstead's case, I want to get as close to I can as, the way his physique looks, the aesthetics of his physique. It's going to be mine, but I'm going to try to, make it look really good and get to, a really good level for me. If I were just saying, you know what, for 2 years, I'm going to work out really hard and I better look like Chris Bumstead, I'm going to be severely disappointed after those 2 years of hard work. And then I probably would say, you know what, I'm done with this. But instead for me, it's like, well, I looked really, really good last year when I did this mother load. It's the best I've ever looked. You know what? And I've had people go, wow, you know what? That's amazing. You look great, all these things. I'm like, oh, just wait till next year. Like I've got my sights set on next year already and what I'm going to look like come next year. Because I think that's what people need to do. So even if you come in here for the gym for the first time to try to start, getting healthier and different things like that. Yeah, there is a lot of comparisons, but I like to tell people, you know what? Compare yourself to you 6 months from now. What do you look like then compared to what you look like then? And even more importantly, how much better do you feel in 6 months than what you felt when you walked through this door? And that's really, it's like, how do I feel and how do I look are the two things I try to have them concentrate.
And that's for me, looking back at what I used to look like and now looking back and looking at myself now, it's crazy. It's like my stomach's flatter. I can see my muscles more. I used to be a lot fatter in my face. There's like, I wasn't like obese fat, but I was fat. And I didn't do anything. I didn't do any activities. I just was like, I went to do what I needed to do during the day, came home, ate, and didn't have any real motivation. It wasn't until I had a heart episode and ended up in the hospital that my buddy looked at me and was like, you're going to start working out now. Like, I don't care. Like, you're going to start working out. And I'm like, I can't lift a lot, blah, blah. I made every excuse. I was full of I don't want to do this and I want to throw a weight at your face. Like, I was like, I don't want to be here. And he was like, I don't want to hear it. You're going to be here for an hour with me. And we started out 3 days a week. And then eventually went to 4. And I'm like, I want
to think that too is a common misconception that, people have about coming to the gym to begin with is, I'm going to need to be there 5 days a week or, 6 days a week or however much, again, some of these people or maybe even friends of theirs or whatever, might come 4 or 5 days, 6 days a week. I'm in the gym 7 days a week. Do I expect my clients ever to be in here 7 days a week? Absolutely not.
But
I would tell them absolutely no.
But here's the funny thing. I've been going to the gym now several years, like 5 years for 5 days a week. And lately I've had some issues that happen where I have to take some time away and that's fine. And then I come back at it. And, but the biggest thing is like, saying that I've been in the gym for 5 years is like, if you would have told me 5 years ago that I would be in the gym as much as I am, I would have laughed in your face. I would have been like, you're insane. You're crazy. I don't want to be here. I don't. And there's so many days where my mind's like you could just sit back down on the couch, Dave. You could sit down and relax. And then I look at myself and go, I'm going to play a movie while I'm on the treadmill or doing cardio. Oh, wow. I actually got some, like, I'm always a diversion kind of person. Whenever I do anything like cardio, I want to keep my mind like, I just want to, so I put on a movie and I'm like, I'm like, cool, done. And I'm like, if I would have done that at home, I wouldn't have gotten that cardio done. So I just changed the location. It's just, those are tiny tricks that I use to kind of trick my brain into realizing, like, dude, no, you can walk on a treadmill for so long and watch like a episode of a TV show. It's not that hard. And now realizing it, and then when I put on my phone, I'm like, cool, I'm like happier than I'm doing cardio and I'm happy. And I'm like, because it's a distraction.
Absolutely.
For my mind, for me, that's important. So, like, would you say the gym is a lot about consistency and the willingness to show up when you don't want to?
I think that's a big part of it, and it's really hard for a lot of people, including myself sometimes, and I've been doing this for 12 years.
That's interesting. You still
doing shows for 9 years. I still have days where I don't want to get up at 5:30 in the morning. I don't want to go to the gym and do, fasted cardio or whatever it is I'm doing for that day.
Yeah.
But I also know too that if I don't do that, unless it's somewhere, where my body is, really, really tired and in need of an absolute rest day, then that's one thing. But generally, that's not going to be the case. And I can still feel like, man, I just could, stay here and sleep. Or, after I get off work today, I don't want to go to the gym because I want to go home and do either nothing or whatever. So even at the level that I'm at right now, I still have those days. But then what I tell myself is, for a fact that if you don't go, you're going to feel even worse about yourself because you knew you can. You just didn't, trying to make up every excuse you can in your head.
Correct.
That you don't want to, shouldn't go, maybe it'll be okay. And if you miss a day at the gym, I mean, big deal, right? It's not the end of the world. But for consistency purpose, especially for people who are just starting the gym, I think it's really, really important to commit yourself to something that's reasonable. Because when people think of the gym, even me as a personal trainer, when I talk to clients, when we talk about training and how often they should come see me, I'm never one to go and tell them that, hey, I think you should come see me 3 to 4 days a week. Well, maybe 3, depending on the person's, where they're at right now.
Yeah.
But if they were to say, I want to come see you 4 days a week, great, let's do it. But if they're very apprehensive, they've never been to the gym before, whatever, education that they've given me on kind of their past experiences,
where they're at,
and where they're at now, and what we've discovered, generally it's like, well, I recommend that you come see me twice a week, and as an example, and how comfortable are they with that? Because they might not be able to come twice a week, or in their head they're going, man, I don't know if I could make it twice a week, because it's that nervousness of, I don't like to have to be certain places 2 times a week, or I don't know if I can commit to that. And that's one of the things I tell them, okay, let's do once a week. Let's commit to 1 hour a week. You come and work with me. We'll go through all these things. When you start being more comfortable coming in, I'd like to see you in here. Even if we're not training together, come in here and just do cardio. Come in here, be in the environment, because then you're starting to get more used to what it's like being in here. You don't have to go and lift heavy barbells. The whole point is get comfortable with the environment in here, because it's really intimidating sometimes for people to come into a gym, no matter which one it is, because they often don't know what they should be doing. A lot of time it's, I don't want to be judged by someone, or, I may look foolish because I don't know how to use this machine. And believe me, all of us have been there. I've been there. I could go into a gym.
I'm still there. I could go to
a gym today, and if I see a piece of equipment that I've never used, I'd be the same way, and just looking at it going, how do I use it? The difference would be, I would really investigate on how do I use this thing, and what is the benefit of it? Where somebody who doesn't know and isn't comfortable would really just kind of avoid the gym altogether maybe, and just kind of, pay a gym membership, for instance, and just never come. And so what I try to explain to either members or even my own clients when we talk is, let's commit to what can you commit to? Is it 2 days a week? Because that's what I'd like to see you, for instance. And if they say yes, well, let's do that. And then when we're talking, going through training, it's how many times you're going to come on your own, or are you only going to come when you see me? Because either way, whatever they're comfortable with is fine. The goal is really to get them more comfortable coming in, even when they're not with me. So comfortable that when they come in here on their own, whether it's they're copying a routine that we did together, but they're doing it on their own. I love to see that with clients. And I have several clients who do that all the time. They'll come in, I'll see them doing something we did last week or whatever, and I'm going, fantastic. And they're doing it right, because I'm a form person.
Yeah.
So
form is huge. Yes.
I'm all about form. So I tell them, we may not, the first time you learn these things, we may not do as many types of exercises in a day as you might want to, because I'm going to show you the right form every time we do things. And if we don't just rush through exercises, of course it takes longer. So I can tell you what the form is and why we need to have the form that way. So, for instance, doing rows upstairs, with a TRX suspension band, and, why we have to keep our back straight and what that prevents us from doing, and why we need to go slow, and, the different things. So again, they understand and they have the education, and not just think I'm just telling them to do it just because. And if you just say, okay, do this and do it slow, they'll follow what you say, but they won't have that education behind it. So to me, if I give them just that little nugget of education of here's why we're doing it this way, again, here's what you're supposed to feel when you're doing it, that makes them a lot more comfortable, because now they're like, I know that exercise.
Yeah.
So when they knew no exercises, now we've started that one, they now know that exercise, and they can come in and probably do it on their own.
There's a story that I was watching this video on YouTube, and it was about this father and his daughter. They're both really famous on YouTube. And he was talking about how his daughter was scared to work out. So he explained how to get used to the environment. And it makes a whole lot of sense to me. So he says to her, just drive to the parking lot in the gym. If you don't go in, you don't go in. See it as a victory. Go home. Next day, do it again. If you can't go in, that's fine. See it as a victory. The next day, you go, oh, I can step in a little bit. You're still a little nervous. Go home. See it as a victory. Next week, you're like, okay, I'm going to jump on a machine for a little bit. You say you're there for like 10 minutes. You leave, you go home, see it as a victory. So it's like building this. You showed up. Yes, you went home. That's fine. Try it again tomorrow. Try it again the next day. It's like, that's how you can help your anxiety too about getting into a new environment. Is like, you go in, you're like, you look at a couple machines, maybe you do like 10 minutes of cardio, and you're like, I gotta go home, see it as a victory. Eventually, you will go, okay, now I can lift some weights. You lift a couple of weights on a couple different machines. You want to go home? See it as a victory. It makes sense to me, because at least someone is attempting to be in the environment, right?
Exactly.
Do you think that makes sense? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Seeing that?
Yeah, it does. That makes a lot of sense, because again, the gym, this day and age especially, tends to be somewhat intimidating to certain people. Other people could walk in and just, be about their business, and it's great.
Yeah.
But other people, who are new to the gym might be the exact opposite. They might be that person who needs to sit out in the parking lot and go, okay, when am I going to go in? At least I came here. And that's a big thing, is being able to come in different increments.
Thank you.
Because if you did, number one, you already took the first step of signing up for the gym to begin with.
Correct.
So that's a big step for some people, because they'd be like, okay, I know I need to do something about, whatever aspect of health or things like that. So that's the big first step. But then, of course, coming in, the intimidation factor and just different things, not knowing machines and whatnot. Yeah, coming in, treadmill. Okay, at least you can see kind of what the environment is.
Yep.
And even if you only did the treadmill for the whole week, that's all you did when you came in. What were you doing before you signed up? You were doing nothing.
Yes.
So it's like, that's a huge win. And then eventually, like you said, if I think personally, if we take it in smaller steps, if you're not comfortable, you take it in smaller steps and you come into a gym, regardless of where you are, and you do those types of things where you slowly learn.
I think that matters.
Then people will become at least a little more comfortable every time. And then you get to the point where maybe you're going to, talk to a trainer, or maybe you're going to be a little bit more incentivized to watch certain videos on YouTube and certain things to help you train yourself. Regardless of what that is, you need to sometimes take it just in those baby steps, so to speak, but those baby steps are actually really big steps for a lot of people.
And to me, hearing that dad explain it that way, I was like, that's what helps my anxiety, because I have anxiety like no tomorrow. I mean, I may seem like a very social person. Once I start talking, I'm good. Once somebody is like, that I can talk to, I'm golden. I'll talk their ear off. But like when I'm going into a new environment and like my anxiety goes through the roof, it just does. And I eventually was like, by being in here, by being in the environment, by being around other people, you realize people are not as judgmental as you think in your own brain.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Because that's another thing that affects anxiety. Your brain keeps going and thinking of all these different possibilities, and your anxiety builds. And so when this dad explained it that way, I was like, that's genius. That's a genius way to explain it to your child, or to somebody that wants to start doing something in life. It's all about those baby steps. It's not like jump right in, 3-day, boom. No, like some people have to do things a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And you may have to go about it a different way by slowly tiptoeing. And then, but eventually you'll get the courage to start on a routine and to start we're all at different places in all of our minds and all of our brains. We're all different people. We all work differently. So I think it really makes a difference when you actually realize that not everybody's going to think like you when they come into the gym.
Yep.
And you know what else I've noticed? Everybody's encouraging. Everybody that I've ran into, that I've got to know, that I've spent time with, and did podcasts with in this office, and just in general, is just like, it's a welcoming, supportive environment.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And if anybody judges you, that person isn't. No, you're here, making a difference in your own life.
Exactly.
So their view, you shouldn't realize. You should only focus on where you're at in the gym and where you're going. I mean,
agree. Yeah.
You probably tell your clients, like, if they're a little nervous about doing something, you're probably, you explain it and you're there, and it's like eventually they'll get comfortable with that exercise, and eventually they'll feel more confident in the way they perform that exercise, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not, I'm lifting 500 pounds. Yeah, that's cool. No, I think it's cool. I've seen somebody lift like 4 or 5 plates on each side. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. That's rad. Yeah. And I'm just like, no, I break my spine. We're all at different levels. So how do you explain to a client that says, oh, well, I'm going to be lifting this much and so, and like, how do you explain to them, like, it's a gradual thing, or like you slowly, like I've slowly added on weight, slowly, right? For me, I've slowly added on weight, not just jumped up 10 pounds, 20 pounds or whatever, it's 2.5 here, 5 here, 2.5 here, 5 here, like that's how I add on my weight to my exercises. How would you explain that to a client? Is like, I want to be lifting this much weight. Like, how do you explain to them? Do you talk to them and say, is that really your goal? I mean, how would you approach that?
So a lot of times, if you have somebody who wants to, gosh, I want to I want to bench this much, or I want to deadlift or squat this much. Essentially what you're going to do.
Sorry, May.
It's all right.
Shut up.
So if it's somebody who has a specific goal in mind, yeah, you do want to understand what's the motivation behind that goal. So if you want to lift, a 400-pound deadlift, why do you want to do that? Like, what is your motivation to want to do that? So I can understand from them, really where their mind is at, so to speak, and why it's there. And then we start with, well, let's see where we're at now with everything we're doing. And then I'll give you a realistic idea of when you might be able to do that. Same with anything like somebody who wants to come in and they want to lose weight. Well, how much do you weigh? How many pounds do you want to lose? Why do you want to lose that weight? Like, you need to have all of this information about what motivates them to really understand, is that going to be a good fit? That goal that they have, is it realistic? Because if they come in and want to bench 400 pounds in a month, okay, I've never had anybody say that. But, if they did, is it realistic for them? Probably not. And if we say, okay, yeah, that's a great goal, and we just move on, we don't investigate that. We don't kind of explain like, that's a lot. So why do you want to do that? Where are we at now? All those different things, and kind of explore that with the client. They're going to be disappointed in the training that they get, because they're going to think in their minds that I've told them my goal. We didn't get there in however many sessions or whatever their time frame they were looking at. We didn't get there, so now they're disappointed, whether it's in the training or in themselves. So you've got to be really honest with the client when they say, this is my goal, regardless of what that goal is. Why is that your goal? What's the motivation behind that goal? Okay, well, let's talk about it and really be upfront and honest with them about, I can help get you there, but this is what it's going to take as far as time or different things. Because we don't want, a client to come in and have these specific expectations, and we just kind of blow those expectations up because we don't meet them, because they may not have been realistic. We have to be realistic and say, absolutely, yes, we can get you there if it's something we can, get.
What if somebody starts out and they can't squat just the bar, and they're like, I want to squat 400 pounds? I mean, it's...
that's one of those things. If they were to say that my goal is to do this, well, okay, again, I would start with, why do you want to be able to do that? What's the motivation? And then they talk about, well, I want to be stronger. I've seen this video, whatever the case might be. I'd say, well, 400 pounds is a lot. That's more than I squat. But I go, with enough training and time on your legs, and absolutely, you probably can, barring any kind of injuries and those types of things. But you have to put the time and the effort in. You can get built up to get as close as you can to there. But I always kind of caution people, especially with, let's say, something like that.
Yeah.
They're probably looking and, comparing themselves to someone, as we talked about.
Yep.
And they want to be that person or do what that person can do.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not that person. So that's why it's really important to get the backstory on the motivation. But if they still want to, and it seems like it's just something they really want to do, they want to get stronger, all this stuff, okay, let me help you get there. But it's going to take a long time, from not squatting the bar to squat 400 pounds.
Yep.
But if you want to get there, let's work together to try to get you to that goal. We'll be working together for a while, but it's better that you and I are working together, and I can do all of the things that are going to strengthen every part of those legs and your back that's holding this big giant barbell with all those weights on it. Then you kind of coming in here and kind of trying to mirror what other people might be doing and may not be helping. Because that, again, goes to, people being disappointed and then just leaving the gym and never coming back. And it could take years for them, if they ever go back to a gym, because they were so disappointed the first time they came, because they didn't achieve their goal, or, a trainer wasn't realistic with them and said, oh yeah, we can do that. And they didn't come close. Well, the trainer's honest and says, well, in your 6-month goal, I can't get you to 400 pounds because that's not going to happen. But let's say where we can get you in 6 months, because we can get you lifting more than that bar in 6 months.
Oh yeah.
And you get them to somewhere where they're like, wow, I could lift, just body weight squats is all I could do. And now I can lift 95 pounds, the bar plus 25s. That's a huge win for that person, because that you can go up. And then at that point, what does that say in their mind? Like, I'm capable. I can do this. I may not be lifting 400 pounds on there, but I've gone from nowhere, where I can't lift any weight except for my own body weight, to lifting my own body weight plus another almost 100 pounds. That's awesome. And so you have to really set that expectation. So when they get there, they know that it's a huge step, and it's not, oh, well, I only got to 95 pounds. You know how big of a deal that is for people if they start and can't do that? That's a huge deal. And so you have to you set that expectation because, we're not able to perform miracles and make people look like Chris Bumstead overnight.
Yeah.
And so we have to be really, really truthful and honest about what it's going to take, because that's what's also going to give the client a lot of trust in you, because we're going to help them to that goal and they're going to see that. But if we let them set unavailable expectations, there is like way too high. The bar is way too high for that. And we don't kind of temper that and say, well, let's get you there slowly, or maybe we can't get them there at all, but we're going to get them as high as we can. Then it just leads to disappointment.
And that doesn't create a good reward system in their brain. It's probably then that says, oh, well, they may judge themselves and look at themselves, but what you were saying is 95 pounds. You went from not lifting just your body weight to 95 pounds. That is a success, like people think that going from this certain weight to that certain weight, it's whatever when you look at yourself and you have to realize where you were.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. Realize where you were when you first started, when you first came into the gym. Realize where your body was. Realize how your muscles are now and how you are now and how you're more confident and how you're, there's a lot of tiny things that kind of go into lifting weights. It's not always just the physical part. The mental game plays a huge aspect. For me, especially, because it's like I could go to the gym or I could not go to the gym. I could go to the gym or I could not go to the gym. And then my brain says, no, I'm going to beat you up. You're going to go to the gym and you're going to go. And that's when that's what I have to tell myself is you're going to go to the gym. Mm-hmm. I don't care. Like, you don't feel like it? So no, we're gonna go, and it consistency over just here and there, here and there, here and there. Consistency. Even if you're just here for, say, like an hour, half an hour, an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were here, you did what you could, and go home. But don't judge yourself when you go home and look at, well, I looked at somebody else and they were, no. Comparing yourself to somebody else, that's doesn't do anything for you. You have to want to work out. You have to want to work out to look at your best.
Exactly.
And that increases your self-confidence. That helps anxiety, like being more confident in your body. Like all these things add up to make you feel more at ease, more like comfortable in being in this environment and not realizing nobody's judging, not a single person, because they're in their world.
Right. And that's one of the big things is they have to understand that just as much as you're in your world trying to learn, trying to do, get into, working out, whatever phase you're in, everybody else is doing the exact same thing, whether they've been working out for 10 years or 10 seconds. Everybody's in their own world. They've got their own goals. And, it's not as judgmental as people imagine it to be, because when you walk through that door, it's not like all heads turn around and look at you. It feels that way, but it's not. And, like you said, everybody has their own goals and their own little world that they're in. And that's kind of what you join. You join this whole environment. Everybody's in their own world. People are friendly. People will help. If you ask somebody here, pretty much any member, I think, hey, how do you use this machine? Definitely if you ask a trainer, but if you ask a member even, they probably take the time to help you and just say, here's how I do it, or, or whatever. And I've seen that here. But yeah, it's definitely something where, people just need to give it a try and really, that final push to just at least go through the door. And that's a huge step for a lot.
Yeah, I agree. We're going to end the podcast today, but I'm sure I'll have you back on because this was a very good conversation. And I hope it helps people out there to realize that you just have to create consistency in your daily practice. That may be in working out or doing anything creative or anything. It's all about consistency and keeping your mind focused on that goal. So I will see you all next time, guys. All right. Bye.